Here we go. Ask the Podcast Coach for January 23rd, 2021.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that music that means it's time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I am Dave Jackson from the schoolofpodcasting.com, and joining me right over there is the one and only Jim Cullison from theaverageguy.tv. Jim, how's it going, buddy?
Greetings, Dave. Happy Saturday morning to you. Happy post-inauguration day. We have a new president in the United States. It's interesting days. It's not like everything's changed all at once, but it's interesting days. So
and COVID's done, and life is no,
it's
quite.
not. It's all right. We got some work to do. So it's interesting. Man, it has been an interesting January just here in the United States. So it's never a dull moment. That's for sure. Never.
You know what? But you know what would make it even better?
What's that?
Maybe a cup of Joe.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's time for
coffee.
That's right. That's right. And that morning Joe was brought to you by, that's right, our good friends over at podcastmarketing.co. And I'm going to do something different. If you think about this, because I know you might be going over there and going, wow, that's hundreds of dollars to get a logo. And yet you pay $20 a month for Adobe Audition. You pay X amount of money. Think about it. Mark did the School of Podcasting logo. I've had it probably going on a year. The longer I have that, the cheaper it gets. It's just one of those things that, you do it once, it's a one-time fee, and you keep on going. And the beauty of it is, of course, Mark is a podcaster. He's an award-winning graphic artist, and he works with you to make sure that your podcast and your brand are all in unison. We were talking earlier about a great job he did on the Cigar Authority. He integrated the cowbell into their new logo, which is great. And if you're looking for artwork for your podcast, or if you need a whole new website or any kind of lead magnet or anything like that, Mark, and he's Canadian. I always like to throw that in. So it's a polite experience. Check out Mark over at podcastbranding.co. I don't know. I feel very Harry Connick Jr. every time I hear that.
It's such a good tune. It's such a good tune. We should say too, the cup sponsored by the Dog Podcast Network. They James, they launched their the dog edition this week. So it was they called it the inaugural. It was nice. It was a good tie-in to what's kind of going on here. And what I guess I didn't realize, dog edition, they really designed it for the duration is for people walking their dogs. So it's a 26-minute podcast. Like, you think you walk your dog for a half an hour. So get out, start the podcast, listen to it. I thought that was, and they call that out in the podcast. So nice job. Jobs are available there. Dogpodcast.com/jobs. They're looking for some folks. They're giving away up to $15,000 in prizes. And their first episode is out. Dog edition. You might want to check it out. James, thanks for sponsoring the cup at the dogpodcastnetwork.com.
Let's zoom in on that. There it is.
Yeah, look at that.
DPN.
Yeah. You can do that as well. Dave, if folks want to figure out how to both support the show and maybe get in on some of this goodness, how do they do that?
Just go to askthepodcastcoach.com/store. Many different ways to support the show. And if you're new to the show, we are live on YouTube right now. If you go to askthepodcastcoach.com/live, and if you want to jump into the video, then you just go to askthepodcastcoach.com/join. If you are listening to me on Clubhouse, like Haley, Radke, and Gary, and Liz, and Chris, then, and if you have a question, you can just raise your hand. The way we do it on Clubhouse is I basically bring one person at a time on stage. You ask your question. We will ask you about your podcast. So if you start off with like, hey, Dave, I want to tell you about my podcast and do a little self-promotion. Well, yeah, that'll get you kicked right off the stage. It's a fun little game show thing we're throwing in this week. We will ask you about your podcast. No need to come in and just start stuffing your podcast down our face. Unless, of course, we need your backstory and things like that. But I did notice somebody did that last week, and I was like, oh, how rude. So if you have a question, feel free. Mike, welcome to the show. Feel free to raise your hand, and I'll be happy to bring you in. But Jim, I had a question. I'm noticing something here. I don't know if it's a comment, maybe more than a question. I'm seeing this a lot. I was in the podcast movement. Oh, look at that. Oh, you got to love him. The Corner podcast himself. Mr. Darren Dake. Talk about a great story. If you want to read more about Darren, there you go. Profit from your podcast. He's one of the guys I talked to. Darren just wanted to talk about coroner stuff because he's a coroner, and now the guy's just crushing it, teaching people how to be coroners. And is it just me, or I get the feeling Darren can't hear me? No,
Yeah,
I can't.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
we can hear you.
We're not on mic.
You're on the.
I'm getting feedback. I'm trying to figure out how to stop it.
Yeah, well, you probably have us open in a window somewhere listening to us. So close that.
How's that?
Make sure you go into StreamYard, go into the settings down below and make sure the StreamYard settings are picking up your microphone.
Okay. Is it now? I think it is now.
I think
no, we're still hearing through your camera.
I think maybe we switched over there. No, maybe not.
Oh, that is crazy. Normally this was just perfect. So
that's all right. Well, we can hear you. We'll deal with it.
Go ahead and ask your question, or what do you got for us?
All right. Hey, I don't jump in here, guys, very much. So I do kind of listen on the other side, but I had time today and I wanted to jump in. And again, I wanted to ask about Voxer. I'm thinking about using Voxer for my membership. And I don't know if anybody had experience with Voxer. I've heard Dave talk about it some, but I want to just open it up to the members in the membership community. But then again, how much is that going to take up my time? People voxing me all the time. Any experience?
Yeah, my experience was Libsyn started a Voxer, and I'm not sure how. I think Elsie created a group, and then she would manually add people to it. I don't know exactly how much the group thing was. It is a situation where one bad apple can spoil the whole bunch.
Right.
We had somebody who would comment on every comment, even if the comment was absolutely. So your pings or whatever they are kind of got doubled, and it was one of those things where everybody was thinking, man, I wish we could kick that person out, and we didn't. And what happened was everybody left, like pretty much, and Elsie even kind of stopped like using it, because every time she said, hey, new episode of the feed is out and the average number of downloads went up or whatever, here would come this person going, great, can't wait to listen to it. Like they just delivered no value. And it was one of those things that, like, once you noticed it, it was like a what do you call those things on your fingers that you want to pull off but they hurt? A hangnail.
Or something?
Yeah. Jim, do you have any with Voxer?
Yeah, we did Voxer as a family. That kind of was our very first family chat idea. And there's plenty of platforms that do that. I mean, I know you like it because it's voice. Darren, what are you hoping to achieve with the group? I mean, yeah, you want to create one, but what are you hoping to get done with it?
So I have a membership now, active now, but I'm just trying to create a little bit more community. We have a community aspect on our online learning platform and a lot of training videos and things. I'm just trying to make the community more community.
Yeah.
So that we're not individualized, because on the other side of it, community, they stay longer, they pay more, jumping in and out when they feel like they're all alone. So I thought Voxer would help them access me. I'm nobody important. It's just that if they had a question about a course or a question, we could build better community. But then I'm thinking, wow, that could get pretty intense.
Yeah. Yeah. We use Discord for that. So our communities likes Discord.
Yeah.
So same idea. It's not a members only kind of thing, but it's kind of worked out that way just because the most engaged people are the ones that are going to do it. I have a moderator that helps me, and it's under control. Like I don't, we've got 50, 60 folks making comments every once in a while. Not very often things get out of control, and I need to be like, all right, guys, let's focus.
Well, I wouldn't want 50, 60 voice Voxers coming in. That'd be tough.
No, and you won't get, I think, by the nature of people having to leave a voicemail, that slows that process down a little bit anyways. And so you probably wouldn't be getting that. You know what? Just try it out maybe with a small focus group of some folks that are close in there that, hey, we're just starting this. Maybe just a few of the patrons or whatever, like maybe 10, give it a try. Just see. That way you can ditch it. If it doesn't, you're not committing to it. So try it with a small group and then.
Well, not only that, and I'm going to bring Chris Nessie up to the stage here because Chris has, he's definitely a what you call it, jigger. I'm hoping I'm hitting the right button. Wait, I want to. Oh, there we go. I have to click that button. Sorry about that. He's used Voxer before. You can also, you can mute it basically. Because I know at one point I went and I said, look, I've had enough of the notifications. And then I would just go into the app periodically and hear what people said. And I would reply and things of that nature. So, Chris, do I have your permission to record this call?
Yes, you do, Dave. Good morning.
Good morning. And you have some Voxer experience, right?
I do. I use it, as a teacher and everything. And one of the podcasts that I do, we have a Voxer group for it. But I will say to anybody who wants to use it, it can be really effective, but it does take work. And you have to be intentional about how you want to engage your audience. If it just becomes another way for you to say, I released my latest episode, and that's the extent, you're not going to get much value out of it as the host, and your audience and community also isn't going to get a lot of engagement out of it either. But if you can find other ways that you want to engage with these, as we're talking here in this case, you've got, it would be exclusive to certain people who listen, right? So there could be that added value piece where they have that direct connection with you. And again, the types of questions and discussion you have might lead to more content on your podcast or your blog, but you have to be very intentional about being active and using it.
True.
It sounds like anything like Facebook. You know what I mean? You can make a Facebook group, but you still kind of have to go in and start discussions and occasionally moderate and things of that nature to keep things going in some cases, or at least to start the fire and get people talking to each other. But it's like I said, I've seen it work really well. And then, like I said, we just had one person in this one group I was in, and it just became super annoying to the point where I think everybody either A, did what I did, which was you turned off your notifications, which meant you didn't go back. And then eventually you just realized that, wow, I haven't been participating in this group. I might as well leave because it's not delivering value. It's delivering pain in this case. Right. And off we went.
And so it sounds like maybe, while we have a community forum on the membership site, Discourse or something, might be better than Voxers to still building a community. I don't know. I'm just looking into it. I'm thinking about it. And I thought you guys might have some experience in that before I would jump in full force. But I like what Jim said. Maybe start out with a small group and just see kind of how bad it gets. I don't care to be asked questions. Again, in my situation, it's because most of these are students of our online courses. And some of them are talking about course stuff. But some of them may ask me a case related thing, and that's all fine in the group. But man, it could get overwhelming. So I didn't know. But anyway, I've kind of got some good direction.
It could, Darren, for sure. So put some guardrails around it. Set the bar high to begin with, and kind of bring it down just until you figure out what you can kind of handle.
Right. Yeah. And, so the whole process this year, the whole focus of us is to build community, and we're trying to find better ways to build the community and keep our students engaged. And this is just one of the ideas.
Have you surveyed them, Darren? Have you asked them what they want to use?
Not about Voxer. We have talked about community forums, and we have that built into our platform, and they do use that some, but not that much. And I'm thinking, I know these people have more questions or more engagement, or I want to pull them into, then they're not using the forums that much. So I need to ask them if they want more engagement. But
just remember, there'll be a rush in the beginning, so don't panic too early. There's kind of a rush. Everybody gets excited about it, and then it'll dip off. So don't kind of hold through that rush. Don't panic. Like when you get it, and then settle back in. It'll get slower the longer you have it. I think.
Yeah. Well, good advice.
And I just got to spotlight some of Darren's story. The thing I loved about it, and Darren, you got to fill in the blanks for me. If I understand this right, Darren started off, he wanted to talk about, coroner stuff. He couldn't find other coroners to talk to. He starts the coroner podcast. People are like, wow, this guy really seems to know what he's talking about. He gets asked to speak everywhere, got a job because of his podcast. And then if I understand this right, you found that as a coroner, you have to get certified. Is it every year?
Well, some coroners are nationally certified, has to have a certain amount of CEUs. So I started providing those CEUs online.
Yeah. So that was the thing is
a certification program. So now we can pre-certify you on a national level through our academy.
Yeah. So Darren's another great example of he jumped into his audience and found a need. They're like, hey, I need to get certified, and there's no place where I live to get certified. And Darren was like, aha. Mm-hmm. And is it official? Is it okay to say you're kind of crushing it now with your course?
I would say we're kind of crushing it. I mean, there's numbers out there that probably, are better, but yeah, we're crushing it. We are multiple six figures.
Nice. Cha-ching. Wow. Yeah.
Wow. Nicely done.
So and the guy just started off like, I don't know. I just want to talk to other coroners.
Yeah.
Like,
we started the Corner Talk podcast in 2014. So we've been at it now. Well, in August will be 7 years, I guess. And my whole philosophy was, I had that image in my mind. Who am I going to talk to? I want to talk to that coroner in a southern state that doesn't have a lot of money, can't afford training. I'll give them at least 1 hour a week of training. At least that. They get 52 hours here. Well, then that has, like you said, I started speaking and doing some other engagements and stuff. And what's funny is that one particular state that I had in mind, just as a picked one, we are now one of their, that's one of the states where we're actually their mandatory training to be coroners in their county. I guess it's because maybe I just focus that direction, but so yeah, I mean, there's some states that you can't be a coroner if you don't take our training. In fact, we're written into a couple of state statute laws. You either have to have this, or you have to have Death Investigation Academy, or you can't even run for coroner. So we've come a long way in the last few years. So
yeah, that's awesome.
And again, and we never made money for 3 years. 3 years. 3 years.
There's that saying again. Thank you. You just got yourself into the school of podcasting. Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Anything else we can help you with?
Nope, guys. Thank you very much.
Hi,
Have
Darren.
a great Saturday.
You bet.
All
Great
right.
seeing you. Thanks for calling in.
We'll see you. Chris is still on the stage over at our clubhouse. Chris, anything else we can help you with?
No, I just wanted to experience the show from this point of view this week. I heard it on YouTube last week, but the audio sounds great. The music sounds great. Jim, you sound great. Hope you're doing well.
Thank you. Yeah.
But I wanted to throw it out to whether people here on Clubhouse listening or in the YouTube side, I've dived into Clubhouse this week as a consumer, and I was just curious what other people are seeing or learning who maybe have jumped in after, Dave, I told you this week that once again, you got me to do something new, and it's your fault that I'm now engaged on this, but what's everybody else learning this week?
Well, here, let me, I don't know why I'm clicking on, I'm trying to get Rob Greenlee on the stage. Here we go. Invite to speak.
What? Rob Greenlee's out there?
Rob Greenlee is out there.
Nice.
We're catching him before he goes on Todd's show. So Rob has been living in Clubhouse, I think, more than I have. I usually spend a couple hours a week in here so far. First of all, Rob, do I have your permission to record this call?
Yes.
Thank you, Rob. What have you been seeing in Clubhouse?
Oh, just a lot of great conversations, a lot of activity, a lot of users. I think it's growing quite fast. I mean, I think if they open it up where anybody could join, I think this community would just explode, and I think that their servers would melt down too.
Yeah. What's has there been like one big takeaway maybe from as you've been doing this that you're like, man, I'm glad I was here for that?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the very early days of Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that. There's a lot of enthusiasm for it. It does feel like kind of a unique medium as opposed to podcasting. I know you're blending these two worlds together, Dave, with what you're doing here, but it does feel like a different medium than podcasting. So I think treating it, for most people, treating it as a unique maybe add-on to your podcast. I think some shows like yours, Dave, really it fits really well because you are doing kind of basically a call-in talk show, and you've always leaned that way. So I think it seems to be working well. And that's why I pop in here, is I want to be able to experience this format that you're doing, Dave, because I think it is something that more people, probably depending on their show format, can look at trying to do.
Yeah, it's go ahead, Jim.
Rob, one of the things I was worried about last week when we were talking about this is we think about how this relates to Blab, is that when we were on Blab, every Blab conversation boiled down to talking about Blab. Have you found, you've been on Clubhouse this week, are you finding something different for now? And maybe it's going to take some time for that to happen, but are people actually having like real conversation? It's just not like, hey, this is cool, this is Clubhouse, let's talk about Clubhouse. Or are you having other conversations other than that?
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm referring to more about this is a different and unique medium, is that some of the rooms that I've been in, I don't think the participants would have wanted it to be recorded or made available outside of that group. It creates this environment where you want to have open and frank discussions and not worry about, your manager finding out about what you were talking about or something like that. Because I think that there is a little bit of a culture right now that's out there right now that if you're talking about the wrong things or saying the wrong things, that people are, canceling or, closing accounts and things like that. I'm not saying that it's happening everywhere, but there is some concerns, I think, out there around online content topics and creation, and people need to be smart about it, I think.
Yeah. I was in a group yesterday, and it had Ronsley Voss from We Are Podcast. Daniel was in there, a bunch of people, and they're all talking podcast monetization and growing your show. So it was kind of like this show, only it was, other people, but it was all about podcasting. We didn't really talk a whole lot about Clubhouse. And I see other ones in there where it's, you see the ones that are kind of funny, like millionaires talking about making millions. And, some of them are, I saw one today as I was scrolling through, and it was like Rihanna versus somebody else, like another singer, and they were going to somehow discuss who was better. So I could see like a room like Hagar versus Roth. Let's discuss, kind of thing. So that's not all business. Some of it's, very like psychology, kind of like dealing with motherhood, trying to find work-life balance. So there's rooms about everything. And that's the only thing that I found. And from what I understand, because you go into the app and you say, here's what I'm interested in. And then you can also follow people. So if you are seeing a bunch of rooms that you don't want to participate in, then either follow different people or change your interests or things like that. But it's definitely interesting. So Rob, I know you've been here, so I wanted to see what your thoughts were. So thanks for stepping up and sharing your experiences.
Yeah, well, thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. And if you want to drop me out and pull somebody else up, that'd be great. I'm going to move you back to the audience. So, and there we go. So, yeah, John Parker in the YouTube was asking, hey, is this an iOS only app? Yes, it is, unfortunately. And that's one of the things, like Rob said, I think in the event that they did open this up to everybody, because there's so much buzz about it, that it would just melt. Like, I remember when, I think it was Gary V was talking to Tony Robbins or something. It was one of those two. Came on to Blab, and Blab just went, it was, you couldn't, everybody was getting kicked off. It was just, it just was not good. So if you have a question and you want to jump in, of course, on Clubhouse, you can just raise your hand, or if you're here watching us on YouTube, it's askthepodcastcoach.com/join. And one of the things I wanted to talk about briefly is this week, as he holds up a hard drive, I had one of these crash on me. It's a Western Digital 4 terabyte drive, and it just said, I'm done. No warning shot. It kind of gave me a slight warning shot, but to make a long story short, I was either going to have to spend somewhere between $700 and $1,000 was what I was quoted to get the data back, or, and this is where I was kind of like, when you get in a really bad situation, try not to make decisions when you're freaking out because your brain isn't working right.
Yes.
And so I was like, hey guys, because I downloaded I use Backblaze, and Backblaze is this great, they back up everything, even external hard drives. And I said, hey guys, I downloaded, which is this humongous zip file, and I unzipped it and half my files were missing. And that's when I got really nervous. And that's when I was like, I had to really ponder for a second. I might lose 15 years of podcasting stuff. And I was really, really bummed out about that. And
what kind of drive is that, Dave? What do you have?
That is a Western Digital 4 terabyte external hard drive.
Spinner, right? It's got a spinning drive. It's external, right? And what you're telling me is the only copy of your files besides what was on B2 was there on that drive, right? One was there. There's
smidgens of it on Dropbox. Yeah. Obviously everything's on Libsyn and all my other media hosts, so I wasn't going to lose the actual finished file. But like this morning, I went to do something and I went to get the Ask the Podcast Coach image, and I was like, oh yeah, I don't have that yet. So the great thing about it is, and when I think about it, and I was like, well, duh, is I was going and trying to get the latest backup. Well, the latest backup had backed up the problem. And so I emailed their support. I'm like, guys, I've used you for years. I can't believe I can't get my files back. And they said, go back like 1 day or 2 days. And I went back to Sunday because that was the last time I made any new content, and there were all my files.
Yeah.
So then the fun part was I had to download 4 terabytes of information.
You don't have to. You don't.
Well, that was the thing. I went to download just 1 year of Ask the Podcast Coach, and it was going to take me 14 hours. Right. And so then I saw where they have an option where I can basically send all my files. And you're right, I don't need all these, but I was like, and I just said, hey, send them all to an external hard drive that they have there. They're going to ship it to me. Now I had to pay $189 for that, but it's a heck of a lot faster. And I'm going to get my files. And once my files are on another hard drive, I just ship it back and they pay me back the $189. Or if I want to keep it, I guess I could pay $200 for a hard drive. But
no, don't do it. There's cheaper ways to.
Oh yeah. This
cheaper ways to do that. Yeah.
So that was just something that I know we always kind of talk about that at the beginning of the year, change your smoke detector, back up your files and things like that. But it also did make me realize that there are a lot of files that I really, I don't need the Anchor Sucks folder anymore. I don't need Bernie the cat can go into the cloud. There's a lot of stuff that I had on my hard drive that I'm like, I don't use these anymore. So
you kind of need a digital cleanup day, to kind of go in and clean house. It's too easy to keep some of these things. And, it's too easy to, especially, I'm assuming you have Backblaze's consumer version, which is one PC, but everything that's attached to that PC, right?
That's it.
That's what you have, which is a great deal. I think you pay $60 or something. It's or maybe $30 a month, or do you know?
It's $6 a month.
$6 a month. Yeah.
$6 a month.
$60 a year.
Yeah.
Super cheap. A lot of the folks on Home Gadget Geeks use Backblaze. I use their B2 version, which is kind of more, you got to integrate with it. And I have a server that, it's more complicated. Don't worry about it. But it, you got to have it. But let me encourage you to do this. And let me encourage all the podcasters listening. Like what you're doing, just because you're putting on an external drive does not mean it's a backup, right? So 2 warnings along these ways. That's still only in one place. Yeah. So Dave, you should have something else local. It could be another hard drive, right? Yeah. Just to make sure it's that you're backing up, not syncing, but that you're backing up from one drive to another. Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive, those are not backups. They're synced. They're syncing. You make a major change or you have a major problem like ransomware, they just that data just propagates to the backup. Now, some of them have versioning and there's some things that you can do, but those sync folders are not backup. They are syncing. So just make sure you know kind of the difference between the two. It's really, really, really important, as you found out, because this could have been $1,000 to get that data off that drive, right? If it was really, really super important. You can buy a lot of NAS. You can buy a lot of hard drives and backup for $1,000. So, figure out a plan. If you need help, let me know. I'd love, this is the space I live and die in. So if you're interested in talking about it or you need some advice beyond that, let me know.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where I am now, because if you think about it, if I don't have the online, if I don't have Backblaze and I have 2 hard drives here and my house catches on fire, congratulations. Correct. You've lost 2 versions of your show.
One's got to be off site, right? You got to get one of those somewhere in the cloud that's backing up, not syncing. Yeah. Backing up, not syncing. Okay.
But we had Jeremy, we lost Jeremy. If you have a question in Clubhouse, feel free to raise your hand. I'll ask you if I have your permission to record, and away we will go if you have a question for myself or Jim. But that was a scary thing, and it really, boy, it's weird. We always talk about how the best I've ever done is a 4-to-1 ratio. So a 15-minute podcast will take me an hour. It really slows things down when you have to wait, where's the music? Oh, wait, where's the artwork? And everything's in the cloud, and you have to remember where we're. So I'm just limping along at this point, trying to get there. But it was a very, very scary spot when I was like, I might not get this back.
Dave, remember, you don't need everything right now. You need the important ones. You could go in there and download. By the way, you pay a little. Well, on my version, I pay a little bit to get those back. It's pretty cheap to put them there and to store them. I pay a little bit more when I get them back. But and it's cold storage. It's designed to be cheap, but not as fast to get information back from. But you could download just the things, like you could go back and say, show me everything from the last month. Download those, because that's things you've used or changed or updated or whatever. I like to have like a working folder just for that reason. So these are all the things that I use all the time. It's kind of like my toolbox. And these are files because, there's maybe 20 of them. I don't have to organize them in any way. They just sit in a working folder and they're there. That's, to me, those are the most important ones. Those are the current ones. Those are artwork. Those might be audio files that I use from time to time, or I post places, pictures of artwork, some of those kinds of things. They just sit in a working folder. So then I know, okay, all I need to do is get to my working folder, and I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah, we've got Brandon on deck. We're going to talk to John here. John says, I'm using StreamYard in order to hear my guest. I listen via my laptop jack. Mic is through P4. When I use the effects on P4, like applause, I can't hear it, but the guest can. Yeah, plug your headphones into the P4 and make your speakers the P4. And in that case, you're hearing everything the guest hears. Mm-hmm. So that's the deal there, because
kind of a fancy mix minus, isn't it?
It is kind of a fancy mix minus. But Brendan's a regular listener of the show. He's usually in the chat room. Today he's in Clubhouse. Brendan, thanks for coming on. Do I have your permission to record the call?
You always have my permission to record the call.
Thank you, sir. What can we help you with?
So it's kind of funny that you started mentioning your hard drive woes. Just yesterday, I was in Jim's Facebook group and said, okay, I convinced my wife to let me do my civic duty and spend my stimulus money on some hard drives, and he gave me some really good advice, him and Uyghur. So,
nice.
But that, I've been looking at this the past week. What do you keep? I mean, it's easy, and hard drives are cheap. So right now I'm keeping everything.
Right.
But I'm looking through my shows that I've done, and it's like, oh, dang, I've got 3 terabytes of assets. It's like I've got the raw, I've got the edited, I've got the final produced, I've got all the images that I've put in there. Is there at a point where you're just like, you know what? I can just download what I've got on Libsyn and call it good, or?
Yeah, it's because it dawned on me that I have the raw file and then I use Hindenburg. And when you use Hindenburg, it basically makes another folder with everything that was used to make that episode. And in theory, that's the folder I need to keep, because if I ever want to go back and tweak something, everything that was used to make that is there. So I'm actually kind of double dipping there. I have the original file that was pulled into Hindenburg, then Hindenburg makes a copy and puts it in their folder. And I was like, okay, there's information I could get out of there. And it's always like, well, if I ever need to go back and edit it, I've been doing this 15 years. I've changed one episode. And that's because it was an episode about here's my favorite gear, and everything that I was recommending, I did not recommend anymore. And I was like, yeah, we need to get that out of here. And I had one episode I pulled down because I interviewed a company that didn't exist. And then I did an interview with somebody who, well, they exist, but their podcast didn't, like, everything in there was no value in that episode anymore. And I was like, all right, that's got to come down. But Jim, what do you keep?
Well, so a couple pieces of advice on this. One, keep what you need to keep to be able to sleep at night. So if you keep as much as you can, and then 2, think of what you keep like a budget. Like, what can I afford to keep? And afford doesn't always mean what you're paying for. It might be in time, it may, or it may be locating it. So just kind of think through, what do I need? I keep the raw for sure. Like, okay, if I've created it in its rawest form, I'm going to keep it. And then I make a video file out of it, and I make an audio file out of it. I keep those finished versions of it because I don't want to have to go back and do it again. If it, say I put it on, let's just use SoundCloud. Say I'm using SoundCloud, I put it on SoundCloud and they close, right? Well, guess what? I can't go back and get it on SoundCloud. If something happens to Libsyn and I'm a Libsyn customer and they close, they're not going to. But if they do, right? I'm not predicting anything. You want to protect yourself because you can't guarantee. Even YouTube, like deleted. I had a YouTube account they just deleted one day. I could never get it back. Right. So thinking that, okay, my file is on someone else's stuff is not a good idea. So if you need to have it, and you don't want to recreate it. So I think any finished versions of stuff, Brandon, listen, graphics are small. So I would definitely keep all of those. Your MP3s, they're small. What's big is video files. So if you have big raw 4K video files, well, okay, now you have to start kind of asking yourself, like, and I have a bandwidth cap. So I got to think, okay, now every time I'm sending these to the cloud to back them up, it's coming off the top of my cap, right? So I think you have to think through. It's not just what do I keep, but what can I afford to keep, and then what can I get back if I need it? Like, can I find it again if I need it? So that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, that was me. I was like, WAV files are not as big as video, but they add up. And that was my other thing is I started downloading some of the videos for Ask the Podcast Coach. And I was like, if YouTube went away, would I be devastated that I lost all these past episodes? And I was like, I got the audio. You know what I mean? It's like, I still have it, Now
you can play that, Dave. You could play that same idea. If you have it on YouTube and on Vimeo, you could be like, okay, I have it in 2 places. Now, again, I'm a control freak, so I want control of the file. But you could say, okay, if YouTube goes away, chances of YouTube and Vimeo going away at the same time, pretty small, right? Yeah. So I don't know, Brandon, does that help?
Yeah, that helps a lot. There was one time that I had a co-host get engaged, and his fiance was like, "Look, I'd like to spend more time with you. You should stop podcasting."
Oh, and that's it. It's off. Do it. Give me that ring back.
I mean, I think he made the better choice. But I was going to do like a best of episode, and there were a couple clips that were like, "Oh, we have to include this," and I had music behind them, and I didn't have the original. And so since then, I've been keeping all of the raw stuff. And but that helps a lot. Hard drives are cheap right now, so I just am going to start building an array that I can just keep making bigger and bigger. I do it for a day job, and so it's like I should have something like that at home, but I haven't.
Brandon, I have this really cool link that I got from somebody else that has all the hard drive prices listed.
I saw that.
Okay. Oh, did you say? Do you have it? Are you? Good?
I think so. Was it? Okay. Just like in a big table of all of them.
Yeah, and it keeps it automatically updated, so you're constantly seeing what the cheapest prices are. I think today, like 4 terabytes, Dave, the size you have is the sweet spot for hard drives. So if you're buying those kinds of drives, you'll really want to kind of focus in that 3 to 4 terabyte. You get more, and they get a little more expensive per terabyte. A little bit less, you're not getting as much for what you get. So but that's a good reminder. I'll drop that in our Facebook group as well for you, Brandon. So you've just in case you got it. But
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you
awesome.
Bet. Thanks for jumping
Thanks, buddy.
In. You bet.
All right. Well, we've got Frank and Kelly coming up. Before we get to Frank and Kelly, we got to get to our awesome.
I spilled my coffee though. Can you that was just a massive disaster. Can you
we can do that.
Out? Can you help me out there? All right, thank you.
We always like to thank our awesome supporters, but also I'd have to pull it up. I believe we got our first 1-star review for Ask the Podcast Coach. Yeah, so thank you so much for that. We are real podcasters now. We got a 1-star review.
Nice.
And
where did it come in at?
Well, I got it through My Podcast Reviews, which you can find at supporttheshow. Yeah,
Apple Podcast.
Through Apple. And their thing was great show, except every 5 minutes they have to stop and thank their supporters. So we're going to stop and thank our awesome supporters. And of course, with the first one, the Teacher's Pet. You heard about him at the beginning of the show. The Dog Podcast Network. If you want to make some money podcasting, and you can tell a good story, and you have a dog, check it out. They're looking for 101 dog stories. Go over to dogpodcastnetwork.com/101. But there's a chance to win $5,000 over there. And they did just launch their podcast, their latest one over there. Yeah. And Dog Edition. Check it out, dogpodcastnetwork.com. And we always thank our $20 supporters. So awesome people like Kim at Toastmasters101.net. If you're looking to develop your voice or reduce your editing time or improve your content, Toastmasters101.net. Greg over at Debt Shepherd. If you're looking to get your financial wellness on, Greg can definitely help you out. Shane at spybrary.com if you want to get your spy on. Glenn the Geek Hebert if you want to get your horse on. That's right, horseradionetwork.com. Tons of shows over there, all of them about horses. And then if you have a show that's scary or it's a comedy or it's true crime, you want to get in front of an audience, then go over to indiedropin.com, say hello to Greg for us and say, hey, here's a show. And he actually has a kind of a whole system there that a bunch of new listeners looking for great shows, and check it out, indiedropin.com. Max Trescott up in the air at aviationnewstalk.com. So if you want to get your plane on, I don't know if he does helicopters or jets, but if it's in aviation, he's probably talking about it. If you want to sound great, go over and see our buddy Ed Sullivan over at soniccupcake.com. He'll edit your show and make you sound great. And Michael Delaney over at Baby Mountain Radio Productions, where podcasting and hard work are made fun. Check him over at babymountainradio.com. And of course, if you'd like to be an awesome supporter, you also get bonus content. Not only do you get the last half hour of the show, you get invited to extra meetups and things like that. Go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. And if you're looking for my book or other ways to support the show, go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/store. And next up, we have Frank. We're going to bring him up to the stage here. So, Frank, do I have your permission to record the call?
Yeah, of course. No worries. I'm excited.
Beautiful. What can we help you with? What's your question?
So I have a podcast called Figure It Out Podcast, where I ask the guests how they figured it out. So how did they get to point A to point B? And it varies from different industries.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering, it is a bit broad, and I do want to keep it specific, but the idea is to show people that, whatever industry or business or whatever your story is, that it is possible. So I was just wondering what your thoughts were on that.
Well, let's back up one step. Why did you start the podcast?
Selfish reasons or non-selfish reasons?
Either one.
Both.
Selfish reasons. I actually used to live in China, so I met a lot of people from different countries in different industries. And when I moved back to Canada, it wasn't like that. So I actually wanted to network and still have interesting conversations with people. So that's the selfish reason. But the second reason would be to inspire. The slogan is marketing fueled by education, inspiration, motivation. So I want people to know that it is possible. Everyone's capable of getting to point B from point A, whatever your struggles and challenges are. So it is to inspire and help people to believe in themselves and battle whatever challenges that face them.
And now the real question: is this a hobby or a business?
It's currently a hobby. There's always a small percentage of let's make some money, but I know that it's going to take time, and I'm still small. So right now it's a hobby, and I love it, and I don't mind spending my own money and not getting anything back. But eventually it would be cool to offer services with podcasting, because as we know, podcasting is blowing up. So as of now, it's a hobby, but there is a small goal of making money off it eventually.
Got it.
Audio only, or are you on YouTube as well?
So I do a Zoom, and then I take the audio and I put it on Anchor, which distributes it to other platforms. But I do make a video through Adobe Premiere and Adobe After Effects. It's kind of just an image with the audiograph, but it's mostly just for people to listen on YouTube, not like I want them to watch the podcast. So but there is YouTube videos, but primarily it's audio.
Yeah, the fix-it culture on YouTube is much stronger, and I think I actually think it's a better place to do it. It's more visual. I think you'd get great traction out of that. I'd actually create, if I were you, I'd create fix-it videos that were short and concise and to the point and help people do what you want to do. Then I'd use your podcast to talk about it. That's the space where people kind of expect you could have guests on, you could have longer forms kind of stuff. You can expand it a little bit, but that way the two kind of work in concert. You can talk about, you can do your fix it stuff on YouTube and then say, by the way, we have a podcast community around this. Join us at whatever, fill in the blanks there. But I would try to work YouTube, because the fix it DIY culture is so strong on YouTube right now. You can't miss out on that.
But is that more like, here's how you put, the nail into that kind of fixing it stuff? Or is it more, because you're not, Frank, are you doing physical fix it stuff? Or is it more like, how did I fix this?
It's figured out.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
I should have been more, I do like that idea, but I actually do more of like the story, the journey of a business person. I'm more on the business side. So nothing hands-on, but that is a good idea. But it's more on like the entrepreneurial side.
You can still do it that way. Like you can still, even if it's figuring out business problems, or you can have a really slick 7 to 8 minute version of it for YouTube that's edited well, and then you can still drive people to the podcast to talk about it in maybe even in a longer form. So it's the two can work together. I think you can make that work.
And the fun thing is, I now forget Frank's original question. I forget what you came in.
Does he keep going? How does he get more listeners? Right. Frank, that's really what you're asking, right?
No, I'm just more your thoughts of like your thoughts on the whole, trying to inspire people and, use the podcast as a way to believe in yourself. And, there are people who've done it, so it's just more of a motivational type of kick in the butt. Let's, like, if he can do it, I can do it, kind of, or sorry, they, or whatever. It's 2021. You don't know anymore. If this person can do it, why can't I do it? So it's mostly for people who aren't successful, who want to be successful, and just kick them in the butt to get the fire under them.
Yeah, I think, I know it's weird because I feel like I'm abnormal that I don't need inspired. Like, I wake up in the morning and I know what I want to do, but I understand that there are people that are like, they're stuck in their job. They don't, whatever. And they want to, they have that mentality of like, it would never work for me. And then when they hear somebody else do it, they're like, oh, well, maybe I can do that. My friend Monica Lavera used to do, You Want to Do What? Was the name of the show. And I remember the one, and she would just talk to people who had transitioned from one area to the other, and they explained how they did it and the steps and the things that didn't work and things of that nature. Right now I'm watching James Altucher, who apparently has a very popular podcast, and his basically earned and lost millions of dollars multiple times. It's on Amazon Prime, and he is a very unique character. Almost want to know if he's is it autistic? No, it's the other one. Oh, I forget, but it's high on that spectrum where you just kind of go, this guy thinks differently, way different than I do. But it's inspiring because his whole thing, and he's got a big old audience, and he kind of explains to people, this is what I'm doing, and that whole 9 yards. So it's that whole, I can do it. This guy's done it 3 times. I think he's now on his like 3rd set of millions. But it was just interesting he's like, I can't believe I woke up and I've earned millions and I now have, $43 in my bank account. It was like, holy cow. Yeah. So it can definitely be used. And then, shows like that, if you want to monetize, those are the ones that are kind of handy for like crowdfunding, whether it's Patreon or things like that, can help yourself. But, and Gary in the chat room, and that's really what the show on Amazon is. It's a giant commercial for his book, Choose Yourself. And that's the name of the series on Amazon, is James Altucher's Choose Yourself. And I've heard that name enough. So here we go again, where you get into word of mouth. And I've heard enough people say that guy's name that I'm like, okay, I need to actually go watch him. And that's why I started watching him on Amazon. So
does that help, Frank?
Oh, no, I love it. I just want to do a quick summary and then one more small question, but I think the last question will be beneficial for everyone. So no, I love the idea to do the podcast, get the story from the person, turn it into shorter videos of just me doing it. And the good thing I think that you made me realize just now is that I can even take it even smaller videos and put it on TikTok and Reels. And I like what you said, because now I wasn't utilizing YouTube, and now that you bring up the point that I can do how-to videos with business and marketing, and eventually maybe, who knows, construction or something like do-it-yourself projects. No, I love those points, and I think that's really good. Last question would be, and I think this will help everyone, is just a couple of quick anything, apps, software, Chrome extensions, anything techie that can help make the whole process easier or more convenient, or scale or whatever.
One of my favorite plugins is for one of my favorite apps, which is Todoist. It's a to-do list thing, and as long as I can remember to do the first thing in the morning, which is look at your to-do list, which sometimes I don't, but the thing I love about Todoist is there's a couple different things you can do. One is, if I see somebody send me an email and I'm like, ooh, I need to reply to this later, or I need to do whatever's in this email, I can basically take that and set it into Todoist. And when I go to my Todoist app, which is on my computer, on my phone, on my iPad, it's everywhere, I can click on that and it will take me right back to Gmail, and I can go right back to the original Gmail. That right there, I just love. It works with the woman in the tube from Amazon, so I can tell her to put something on a list, and she will feed that into Todoist. So that's one of my favorite apps. And I also, there are a number of these, but there are anything that lets me speed up video. I love that, because I watch TV and Netflix. I'm always doing research, so if I can do my research at 1.5, I'm a happy camper. Jim, you got any?
That's funny you mentioned that, because I've been watching a YouTuber who actually, part of his videos every day is his chores. He gets he's a homesteader, so he goes feeds the animals and the chickens and stuff like that. And I started thinking, what have I thought about my production is what are my chores? What are the chores that I have to do every single day? And I put those on my to-do list, and I don't do anything, just like I don't do anything until I've done my chores. And so first thing in the morning when I come down to get some work done for Gallup, I just drill through these chores. And Dave, it has been amazing when you think about hitting your Facebook comments every day, hitting your I'm sorry, not comments, YouTube comments, hitting the Facebook groups to see what has come in. Make sure I'm promoting the podcasts in those groups. Like those things that you need to do every day. I think sometimes we kind of think about them in a way of like, well, I'll kind of get to it when I get to it. No, there's some daily tasks that you just need to have. And so like a pilot has a checklist. Like pilots don't fly off memory. Even when
I'm just going to wing it.
I know. I always figured this out. Pilots, when they get into emergency, they have emergency checklists. Like they go to and okay, here's the things we go through. Like the engine has stopped working and they have a checklist to go through. Like turn this off, turn this back on, do this. Why don't we? And so I think if I'd give you a piece of advice is both daily and with what you're doing from a production standpoint, make sure you have good checklists so you're getting everything done.
And Frank, where can we find your podcast? What's your website?
So I have my like kind of personal websites, just my name, frankienz.com/info. So it's kind of like a Linktree kind of landing page. But yeah, it's on Figure It Out Podcast. It's on Apple, Google, Spotify. I'm pretty active on Instagram about it. So if you want to message me there for whatever reason, I'm there. I love what you said about the 1.5, because I only listen to YouTube videos and podcasts at 2 times. I tell my friends and they go crazy. But I just want to say thanks for all the tips and advice, and hope that other people got value off this. And yeah, keep up the great work, guys. Cheers.
Thanks, Frank. Appreciate it. In Canada, by the way, that's when I figured out.
Yeah. Canada. Last question. Where's I just want to follow the videos that you're recording. Where can I find those?
That's a great question. Ask the podcast coach, because it's weird because of my Patreon. Like Patreon gets the full video. If you're not a Patreon supporter, which you can find at askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome, then you only get the first hour. And that is at Ask the Podcast Coach. And it's actually on a separate channel. It's
so
weird.
The real answer is just head out to askthepodcastcoach.com.
Yeah.
All the answers are out there.
And if you want to watch us live, we're at askthepodcastcoach.com/live right now. So, but thanks, Frank. And
Thanks, Frank.
Coming to the stage is Kelly. So Kelly, the first thing I have to do to make sure I don't get banned here is I have to ask you, is it okay if I record the call?
Yeah, totally. Can I record my portion too?
Sure. I don't have a problem.
Okay, because I just don't want to miss anything, and
sure,
I'm definitely going to go back and listen later too. Thank you.
Awesome. What's your question?
Hi, yeah. So I already have a podcast that I launched before, but now I'm launching a new one. It's for a business, and it's a syndicate fund for angel list. It's an angel fund. The whole purpose is to cultivate and leverage female immigrants and diverse founders and investors to create new markets. So that's the whole purpose behind this. And I pretty much just want to do what you're doing, Dave, to really teach other people how angel investing work and how you can figure out like which ones are like the good deals, I guess, like the good investments, and then why, like, and not to just blindly follow some of the investors, and so you have the knowledge yourself. So that's kind of like the purpose, and obviously the other reason is that I can connect with more founders so that they would come to me, for help, and I can maybe invest in them, or other investors that want to co-invest with me. That's pretty much the purpose of the podcast. So my question is, I actually have a podcast schedule with a VC next week, and I see what you're doing, and I'm super curious as to like how you're doing this. And I know you mentioned this before, but could you
peel back the curtain a bit? Yeah. Behind me, I don't think you can see it, but I have a Rodecaster Pro. Nope, I'm not in my own way. I'm using a Rodecaster Pro, and I plug my microphone into that, and I connect to the computer so I can hear Jim via USB. Jim has got his own track. I have my own track, and I've connected you via my iPhone, And because it's got, it's basically got what is that called?
Lightning.
A lightning adapter, because the Rodecaster uses, it's called a TRRS connector. So you'll end up with like a headphone jack, but it's got 3 rings on it. That goes into the Rodecaster as well. So I have myself on channel 1, Jim is on the USB channel, and I need to remember to turn off Do Not Disturb because somebody just tried to call me. I didn't think about that. And then you're on the phone track. So, and then I can get a fully mixed down version of this for my audio. And then for the video portion, I'm using StreamYard. So StreamYard, you can't see right now, but it has myself and Jim. It says episode 329. And, I can bring people on. I use because with StreamYard, they give you a link to go in and invite people. So I just make that a really easy link. I use a tool called PodPage for my website that allows me to make things like askthepodcastcoach.com/join, which redirects to the link from StreamYard that then brings people in via video. So earlier we had Darren come in and he came in via the video. That is a whole lot of information in a small amount of time. Does that?
Yeah, I'm very confused.
I need to make a video on this. I really
do.
Do.
If you can make a YouTube video, I definitely gonna go subscribe and like it and share for you.
Yeah, but basically the video is StreamYard, the whole phone thing, and all the connection is the Rodecaster Pro. And,
okay,
but I could also do this with the Zoom, and I'm holding things up, and I keep forgetting you can't see what I'm doing. I use the Zoom. You could also use a Zoom PodTrack P4, which is $200, where the Rodecaster is $600. So.
Okay, I'm actually really confused right now, but I'm gonna go. That's why I had to record this. I'm gonna go back and try to listen and then see how this.
What's a website if I want to connect with you later? Once I get this video done, I'm
gonna follow you. Maybe are you connected somewhere?
You can find me at askthepodcastcoach.com. Okay. You can find me at schoolofpodcasting.com.
Okay, so I guess I'm under finclusive.us, and then also on my Clubhouse, I have all my links there. So I just followed you. So if you want to reach out, thank you so much, Dave.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks for calling in. I think, Dave, as we're in the final minute here of this, I think this highlights it's complicated. Like what we're doing right now seems kind of like easy, but it's pretty complicated.
Yeah.
Getting all this, and it's not cheap. Like to get the equipment, this isn't necessarily something you kind of do on the cheap. So I think, from a hardware and experience standpoint, my advice to her would be this: start small. So like get on StreamYard and figure StreamYard out, because that's the easiest thing to do, to kind of start first. Then look at your audio equipment, figure out, okay, if I was going to do that, if I do want to bring in Clubhouse, I'm going to need to do what you're doing. That's going to require some additional equipment, and take it kind of one small step at a time. Don't try to do the whole thing at once. And then the last thing I'd say is practice, practice, practice. A lot of people think they got to do it right the very first time, and just get out there and start doing it. Try some things, get familiar with it, figure out, I finally figured out how to get the loop back to work on the Mo2 device when we're in StreamYard so that I can play clips and stuff like that, right? It took me a while. So figure it out. Or like Frank said, figure it
out. Brendan had suggested I turn on airplane mode so people can't call me. Doesn't that turn off my Wi-Fi?
It can initially. It can, yeah.
Because I don't want to lose my,
I think the do not disturb. That might be easier. I think if you swipe down, there's a do not disturb button that you can push. That's all. That just shuts off the phone calls and notifications.
Ah, there we go. All right. Well,
I think that's the right way.
I've also learned the lesson of don't put the Rodecaster behind you. That doesn't work, because I've been doing that for this episode, and I can't.
Don't spill coffee all over it when you spill your coffee at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, that's always fun. Well, Jim, what is coming up on theaverageguy.tv?
So this episode on live on air, I got a Mac Mini M1. So, like, I'm a Windows guy. This was a big deal for my community. They're kind of revolting. And I bought a 4 podcast, so maybe we'll talk about that a little bit in the show. There's some new equipment coming out from Apple, and
that's
we bought it
interesting.
live and on the show. Yeah, it was kind of fun.
What's interesting about that is when I turn the music up, you got really wonky on the video.
Oh.
And I turned it up. I turned it up because when I listen to the audio back on live, you can't hear the music. Like all of a sudden the music just zooms in at the end. And I was like, oh, I need to remember that I can turn the music up louder than I think I can as we're wrapping up the show. So that was kind of different, but yeah, so you got a Mac Mini and your audience went crazy, basically.
Maybe we'll talk a little bit about it in post show.
On the School of Podcasting, well, it's almost like this is, now that I've done this twice, I'm going to talk about Clubhouse. And I got to find another topic because realize that 75% of my audience in Europe can't use Clubhouse because they're on Android. And so that's going to be one of the things I talk about. But maybe I will make that video this weekend and then say, hey, if you want to see how I'm using this. And I also, again, I don't officially know that this is legal because according to their terms of service, I have to have written permission, and I'm getting audible permission for people to use their calls. So I'm not officially like in the clear. I haven't got they haven't contacted me, and so we'll see. How's it go? Ask for permission later or something like that. But
we'll figure it out.
That's it. But in the meantime, we've got another 30 minutes of post show coming, so stick around.